Hi, today we're going to introduce you to the sound equipment for the third year BATV kit. We've got an EX3 camera here, and all of this is the equipment for sound recording that you get.
In the audio kit bag you should find these items: an SQN 4S stereo mixer, an extension cable that's used between the mixer and the camera, a connection cable that plugs the mixer into the camera, a set of headphones, and two XLR microphone cables. Right, before you take the mixer away from the support group desk, you need to check the battery levels. The mixer is switched on the right hand side, and you need to set the switch to battery. On the front of the mixer, you need to press the battery button and check that the right hand needle, the right hand VU level, goes up to a value between 6 and 8 on the lower part of the scale. If it's between 6 and 8, the batteries are charged enough for the mixer to work. If the value of the level, if the level is below 6, the batteries aren't charged enough and you need to ask for a new set of batteries. Before we connect the mixer to the camera, we need to check a couple of settings on the base of the mixer. On the left hand side of the base, you need to make sure the switch is in the line position. This sets the output level of the mixer to the correct level for the camera. On the top right of the base, you need to switch the two switches for channel 1 and 2 to 48 volt phantom power on the top right of the base of the mixer. This provides the power that the microphones need. Okay, the next step is to connect the mixer to the camera. So on the side of the mixer, take one end of the extension cable and plug this in. Be careful to line up the slot in the plug to the indentation on the socket and click home.
Oh, shall I take it from there, Gary?
Yes, please, Mark.
Thank you. On this end of the cable, we're going to attach that to this collection of cables. These are known as tails. On one end of the cables you have a connector that will attach to the multi-pin connector. Again, make sure you line up the keyway. That should line up with a little gap in the ferrule there, and then just pop it in. That's very important, because otherwise there's the danger that you can bend the little pins, and once they're bent, the cable's useless. On the other end, I've got two XLR cables and a mini jack. One of the XLR cables has got some red tape on it. We're going to put the red tape on the right, red on the right. And that's going to go into the camera here. We've got two inputs on the side of the camera here, two XLR inputs, input 1 and input 2. And below these inputs, we've got some switches just underneath there, tiny little switches, and they govern the voltage level of the input signal. So what we're going to do, first of all, we're going to set those to line level. So 1 to line level and 2 to line level. Red on the right, I'm going to pop that in. Number 2 in. And the mini jack, I'm going to put in the headphone out socket, which is just here at the back of the camera. I'm going to pop that in there, and then very important, take the connection end and just bring it up here, get that Velcro strap and tie that around there, and that supports the weight of that, so that if there is any pulling on the cable, it's not going to damage the connections. I'm going to come around the other side of the camera now. I'm going to turn the camera on, that switch here, and we're going to look at the controls for sound on the camera. The main controls for sound are this panel here. Just going to take that part of the viewfinder off there so I can read the screen easily. There's two inputs and there are two channels of sound on the camera, and there's a number of different ways we can configure that. So the controls for channel 1 are the top line of controls. The controls for channel 2 are the bottom line of controls. These controls are the first routing switch, which either goes to an internal microphone or external. and then you can either have it on auto level or manual level, and then if it's on manual level, underneath that flap there's a dial that you can adjust to change the level for the sound. So first of all, I'm going to get those two switches and I'm going to put them to external because we're going to the mixer, which is external. Then I'm going to put the other two switches on manual because we want to set the line level within the camera. Now to get a more usable readout on the viewfinder, I'm going to press this button here at the bottom front end of the camera, and it's a status button. I press that once and I'm going to use the scroll wheel until I come to the sound page, which is page number 2. There's 5 pages and it's page number 2. I then get an audio readout level which states the decibel level and it shows the routing for the sound. So the next thing we have to establish is we send a signal tone from the mixer to the camera so we can line up. Gary, how do we do that?
Well, Mark, on the SQN mixer, we look along the top here and we'll find a switch on the top right panel of the mixer, which you set to T. And you can see on the VU meters here that we've got a signal going out which reads 0 dB on the mixer.
That's great. I can now read that signal in my viewfinder, and I can see at the moment the signal is quite mixed. It's very low on one channel, very high on the other channel. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the two control dials, the two level control dials, and I'm just going to tweak them until I've got both readings on -20. That's set now, Gary. I put the little flap down, and what that does is it protects those dials from being knocked or moved. So that will hold that level on the camera so that it's configured to the SQN mixer. Over to you, Gary.
Okay, so I can switch off the lineup tone now and switch back to mic. Right, so now I'm going to plug my first microphone into one of the channels. If you look on the left-hand side of the mixer, you can see 4 microphone input sockets, and they're labelled 1 through 4 underneath. So I'll take the microphone cable and plug that into number 1. Okay, on the other side of the mixer, we've got output settings. So I'm going to set mic number 1 to left and mic number 2 to right. And if I was using inputs 3 and 4, I'd set them to the left and right as well. So the rule really is set the odd numbers to the left output and the even numbers to the right output. Okay, now we'll plug the other end of the cable into the microphone. So I have a rifle mic here. Mark, if you could hold that for me.
Certainly, Gary.
Thank you. Okay, so we can control the levels on these level faders here. The two large faders are for inputs 1 and 2. It's likely, if we're using 2 microphones, that you're going to use those input channels simply because these faders are designed to be easily used using the side of your thumb. So you can roll your thumb along the fader to adjust the level, in case you need to adjust the level whilst you're recording. Okay, Mark, if you can speak into the microphone for me, please.
1 2 1 2 1 2.
Okay, so I'm adjusting the level as Mark speaks.
1 2 1 2 1 2.
And we want the level to average around the middle of the scale, so just below 0. Sorry, Mark, just one more time, please.
1 2 1 2 1 2. You might notice as well, I'm not speaking into the microphone like that. This is a much more realistic distance. 1 2 1 2 1 2.
That's great, thank you, Mark. I'm happy with that level. We also need to set another setting on here, between the 2 faders, the gang output to the left-hand position. Okay, we should be also monitoring the sound from the mixer through the headphones. So I'm going to plug the headphone socket into the headphone plug into the headphone socket on the side of the mixer here. The headphone level is controlled on this knob here. I'm going to put the headphones on. And the red switch on the front of the mixer needs to be set to the left-hand position, MXR. That means that what I'm listening to through the headphones is actually the signal coming back from the camera. So I'm hearing the sound that the camera is recording. That's important because you need to know that the sound that's being recorded is not distorted, nor too quiet. If the switch is in the other position, we're actually hearing the sound that's coming in direct from the microphones from the mixer. Now you'll only hear the sound coming back from the camera when things are being recorded. So you may wish to set that onto the middle position to hear the direct sound while you're setting levels and the camera's not recording, but whilst you're recording on the camera you need to have that in mixer position so you can be satisfied that the sound you're recording is not too loud and not too quiet.
Yeah, that all makes sense. If you need any further help, you can look up the manuals for the SQN, and you can also look up the manual for the camera, the EX3, and it will be on my BU. So, happy filming.
And happy recording.